New research just changed the best time to take your pills and vitamins, and most people are still doing it wrong. The question I get more than almost any other isn't what should I take, and it's when should I take it? That question covers two things people almost never think about together. Their prescription medications and the vitamins sitting right next to them in the same cabinet. For a long time, the honest answer to when was, it probably doesn't matter much. Doctors were busy focusing on the bigger question, the right drug, the right dose, and timing got treated as an afterthought, something you fit around your breakfast rather than something that could change how the medication actually worked. But the research published just in the last 2 years has genuinely changed that answer for both medications and vitamins. And today I want to walk you through what the newest studies actually found and what to do with that information. On the surface, this looks like a small logistics problem. Someone takes their blood pressure pill with breakfast because that's the routine. Someone takes an iron supplement and a vitamin D capsule at the exact same moment because it's efficient to swallow everything at once. Someone else keeps every bottle lined up on the same shelf and works through them in whatever order they happen to be standing in, never once thinking about it as a sequence that matters. None of this looks like a mistake. It looks like consistency, which is usually the thing doctors beg patients for. But underneath that consistency sits a quieter worry a lot of people don't say out loud. The fear that despite doing everything right for years, some detail they never thought to question, the hour on the clock, or which pills got swallowed together, might have been working against them the whole time. That's harder to sit with than simply forgetting a dose. It's the fear that discipline itself might not have been enough. I understand that fear because I've lived it on both sides. Years ago, I was taking a maintenance medication every morning, proud of my consistency, without ever asking whether morning was the right time for that specific drug. Around the same period, I was also taking an iron supplement daily because daily sounded like the diligent choice, not realizing I might be absorbing less of it than if I'd taken it every other day instead. Both of those blind spots sent me back into the literature, and what I found was a field in the middle of a real shift. For a long time, studies on medication and supplement timing were small and often contradicted each other, so doctors reasonably concluded there wasn't enough there to change standard practice. What's different now is scale. The trials published in the last 2 years are large, randomized, and multi-site. Exactly the kind of evidence interest something your root. What I'm sharing with you today is an opinion since the trials published in 25, the most rigorous evidence this field has ever. Here's what the newest research actually shows, and I want to walk through medications and vitamins side by side because the two interact more than most people realize. Start with blood pressure medication, a large randomized trial from China published in 2025. Followed 720 patients with hypertension for 12 weeks and found that those who took their medication at bedtime achieved better blood pressure control and a healthier circadian rhythm than those who took it in the morning. The logic behind that finding isn't mysterious once you think about it. Blood pressure naturally dips at night in healthy people, and for many patients with hypertension, that dip is blunted or missing entirely, which is itself linked to higher cardiovascular risk. Timing the medication so its peak effect lines up with that vulnerable overnight window rather than with the middle of an already active day appears to help restore some of the rhythm. The 2024 sub-study of the major UK-based time trial added an important nuance. The benefit isn't universal, it depends on the individual's chronotype, whether someone is naturally a morning person or an evening person, and researchers now suggest tailoring dosing time to that personal rhythm rather than applying one rule to everyone. A 2025 meta-analysis pooling multiple randomized trials reached a similar conclusion. Chronotherapy for blood pressure isn't a universal fix, but specific groups, people under 60, those with a higher body mass index, and those on calcium channel blockers, showed clearer benefit from bedtime dosing. In other words, this isn't everyone switched to nighttime. This is now a real variable worth asking about. Now put a cholesterol medication in the same cabinet. A meta-analysis covering 11 separate studies, most of them randomized controlled trials, found that people who took their statin in the evening saw modestly greater reductions in LDL cholesterol than those who took it in the morning, regardless of how long the specific drug stays active in the body. That last detail matters, because for years the accepted wisdom was that only short-acting statins needed evening dosing since your liver produces most of its cholesterol overnight, and long-acting statins were assumed to be flexible enough that timing didn't matter. This newer, larger body of evidence suggests the timing advantage may hold more broadly than that older rule of thumb assumed. A modest but real reduction that costs nothing to capture, since it doesn't require a new prescription, just a different hour on the clock. So if someone is managing both blood pressure and cholesterol, the newest evidence points the same direction for both, toward evening, which is exactly the kind of overlap a rushed morning routine would never surface on its own. Now bring the vitamins into the same conversation, because this is where most people's routines quietly work against them. Take iron. The instinct is to take it every single day, but a 2025 systematic review and meta-analysis found that daily and alternate day iron dosing were comparably effective for treating iron deficiency anemia, with alternate day dosing showing better tolerability, largely because a daily dose triggers a hormone called hepcidin that blunts how much iron the body absorbs from the next day's dose. Think of hepcidin as your body's gatekeeper. Once it senses enough iron has come in, it partially closes the gate for about 24 hours, which means a dose taken the very next morning can be absorbed far less efficiently than one taken every other day. Multiple controlled studies feeding into that picture also found that a single morning dose taken away from food and coffee is absorbed meaningfully better than the same total amount split across the day or taken later, meaning someone diligently taking their iron twice a day or pairing it with their afternoon coffee may be undermining the very supplement they're trying to benefit from. This is the kind of finding that tends to surprise people the most, because it runs against the instinct that more often or more diligent must mean more effective. Here the opposite pattern shows up. Skipping a day on purpose can actually help the body take in more of what it needs. And this is exactly where medications and vitamins collide directly. Calcium competes with iron and with thyroid hormone medication for the same absorption pathway. So a calcium supplement taken at the same time as a thyroid pill can blunt how much of that medication actually gets into the bloodstream, which is why thyroid hormone is generally kept on an empty stomach, well separated from calcium, iron, and food. Fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, sit on the opposite end of the spectrum. They need to be taken with a meal that contains some fat to be absorbed well. So swallowing a vitamin D capsule on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, the way so many people do purely out of habit, may be leaving a meaningful portion of that dose unused. Multivitamins complicate this further, since a single tablet can contain both fat-soluble and water-soluble ingredients, plus minerals like calcium compete with each other, which is why some splitting a general multivitamin separate thyroid regimen rather than assuming one every person. Zooming out, a 2024 review in the journal Clocks and Sleep looked specifically at psychiatric medications and found that aligning the timing of these drugs with a person's circadian rhythm could meaningfully change both how well the medication worked and how many side effects a person experienced, reinforcing that this isn't a hypertension only or a vitamin only phenomenon, but a broader principle about how the body processes anything you swallow differently depending on the hour and depending on what else is in your system at that moment. It's worth pausing on why this shift is happening now. Circadian biology, the study of the body's internal clock, used to be treated as a niche interest mostly relevant to sleep researchers. It's now understood to touch nearly every organ system. Liver enzymes that break down drugs rise and fall on a roughly 24-hour cycle. Kidney filtration rate changes over the course of the day, and even the stomach's rate of emptying shifts between morning and evening. Once researchers had the tools to measure those rhythms precisely and the funding to run large trials around them, the timing question stopped being a footnote and became testable science, which is the real story behind why so many of these findings are clustered in 2024 and 25. So here's what to actually do with this. Don't switch every medications or vitamins timing on your own tonight. Chronotherapy and absorption research is specific to certain drugs and nutrients, and switching a blood pressure medication without guidance can be genuinely risky for some patients. A drug that works better at bedtime for one person's chronotype might not for another, and separating a thyroid pill from calcium by the right number of hours matters more than just moving it sometime earlier. Instead, do this one thing right now. Before this video ends, write down every medication and every vitamin or supplement you take, along with the exact time you currently take each one and whether you take any of them together, and bring that list to your next conversation with your doctor or pharmacist, specifically asking whether the newer evidence on timing and spacing applies to anything on it. That single list, brought to the right person, is what turns this research from an interesting video into something that actually changes your health. If you skip this, nothing dramatic happens tomorrow, but a year from now, you might still be on the same medication at the same dose, hearing your doctor suggest increasing it, or still wondering why your iron levels haven't moved despite taking a supplement faithfully every day, when part of the real answer might have been sitting in something as simple as the clock, or which 2 pills you happen to swallow together. Now picture the other path. You bring that list in. Your doctor or pharmacist reviews it against exactly the kind of evidence I just walked through, separates what needs to be taken apart, shifts what benefits from moving to evening, and adjusts what makes sense for your specific medications and your specific health profile. Months later, your blood work reflects it. Blood pressure steadier, cholesterol lower, iron finally climbing, because you didn't just take everything faithfully, you took it in step with what the newest science actually says your body needs. Thanks for watching. If this helped, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Sources referenced 2024 to 2025. Yar et al. Morning versus bedtime. Dosing and nocturnal blood pressure reduction in patients with hypertension. The Omen Randomized Clinical Trial. JAMA Network Open 2025. Effect of timed dosing of usual antihypertensives according to patient chronotype on cardiovascular outcomes. Time study, chronotype sub-study. eClinical Medicine 2024. Kwang H. et al. Chronotherapy for hypertension. A meta-analysis and systematic review of RCTs. 2025. Statin evening versus morning dosing meta-analysis, 11 studies cited in Trials on Timing of Cardiovascular Medication Administration, Contemporary Clinical Trials Communications, 2024. Danvijay A.D. et al. Efficacy of daily versus alternate day oral iron supplementation for management of anemia among general population, a systematic review and meta-analysis, BMC Pharmacology and Toxicology 2025, Kolita C.I. et al. Optimizing Chronotherapy in Psychiatric Care, the Impact of Circadian Rhythms on Medication Timing and Efficacy, Clocks and Sleep 2024. Production note: this script summarizes recent trial findings at a high level for a general audience. Chronotherapy benefits are drug class and patient specific. Have a licensed physician or pharmacist verify every claim